Hello, my name is Tai Chi, and no, I don't know anything about Tai Chi. This is my first ever Pokemon Challenge run, so naturally, I decided to run it with my favorite Pokemon, Beautifly. I decided I'd also throw in Dustox because I absolutely needed some form of defense on my team, and with Dustox being bug poison as opposed to bug flying, it made surviving a lot more possible. Let's go over the rules. I'm only allowed to use Beautifly and Dustox in battle. HM Pokemon are allowed. No items are allowed in battle, however held items and items used outside of battle are allowed. Battle mode will be on set mode and there are no cheats or exploits allowed. Lastly, there is no level cap, but I will try and keep this as reasonable as possible. These are starter bug Pokemon after all. We start off by getting out of the back of a moving truck. Gee, thanks a lot. Like, what exactly was the plan with that? And yeah, it was really bumpy. I didn't really think you'd care. I mean, you put me in there, right? Next, we're told there's screams in the forest, so naturally we run towards it, of course, because, you know, that's what you do when you hear screams in the forest. Here we find a Pokemon professor running away from a puppy. A great opportunity to rob him, actually. We decided to go with the Trico, expecting Blaziken to be the biggest challenge. As we're leaving town, we're once again called by our absentee mother, who has literally no qualms letting a 10-year-old leave on his own. She didn't even give me a hug. Like, we're given Pokeballs by May immediately and begin catching our true starters. We ended up catching two Wurmples back to back, a male and a female. The male has a modest nature plus special attack and minus attack, and the female has a timid nature plus speed and minus attack. I didn't think much of this initially, but you'll see later why this was extremely lucky. I immediately began training the Wurmples, and the female Wurmple with the timid nature ended up evolving into a Silcoon. We then met up with our also absentee dad who wants us to help some strange kid catch his first Pokemon. Where were you when I needed help, Dad? Like, why does he get help? Anyways, the kid, Wally, ended up catching Geralt. This kid's gonna get his butt stomped from every single direction. Like, we literally own him. My mare Wurmple with the modest nature ended up evolving into a Cascoon. I was extremely relieved as it has taken me 10 plus tries to get the alternative evolution for Wurmple in the past. I was hoping the Wurmple with the modest nature would evolve into a Silcoon, but regardless, both are still great natures. I also never initially realized how lucky it was that Beautifly was a female. Again, we'll explain later why. It's now time to deposit Box. Goodbye, Box. We hardly knew you. Oh, hey, kid, what you doing? You good, kid? Can I help you? Just before arriving in Rustboro City, my Cascoon evolved into a Dustox, a very welcome upgrade, and the best part of having bug Pokemon is the early evolutions. I then evolved my Silcoon into a Beautifly. I was expecting to have Absorb at level 10 like previous games, but it seems they shuffled some moves around and I actually ended up getting Gust instead. In Rustboro, a random NPC gives you an item called a Floatstone. A Floatstone halves a Pokemon's weight. I really didn't think much of this initially and it has nothing to do with our run, but this little Easter egg was pretty hilarious and I had to include this in the video. I then tried my hand at Rustboro Gym, and honestly, I could not even get past the trainers. Between Beautifly's 4 times rock weakness and Dustox's inability to help itself out of a wet paper bag, I think I'll come back a couple levels higher when Beautifly learns Absorb. I came back after Beautifly learned Absorb and Dustox learned Confusion at level 12 and got through the gym trainers expecting this to be an easy sweep with Beautifly using Absorb. Unfortunately, my Pokemon are just too fragile and Nosepass is surprisingly specially bulky with a 90 base special defense stat. I definitely had to grind up a couple more levels. I think I'll come back at level 15 when Beautifly learns Stun Spore, and I think I have a strategy in mind. Round 2 with Roxanne. I grinded my Pokemon up to level 15, where Beautifly learned Stun Spore and I had a strategy in mind. I led off with Beautifly and hit Geodude with a quad effective Absorb to get Geodude down to its 30 ability. Geodude missed a quad effective Rock Tomb and Roxanne used her only potion. Another Absorb and Geodude is down. Next up comes the real challenge, Nosepass. I tried hitting it with a Stun Spore, but it avoids the attack. It manages to connect with a quad effective Rock Tomb, taking me down to 12 HP and lowering my speed. Beautifly eats an Oran Berry and misses another Stun Spore. Thankfully, the Nosepass goes for Harden. Stun Spore finally connects, paralyzing Nosepass, but it manages to break through, taking Beautifly out. Man, that 4 times rock weakness is rough. Out comes Dustox, and I began going for my own Hardens to raise my defense before getting hit with a weak tackle. I go for Harden again, and honestly, that's some big damage for 2 Hardens. Another Harden, and the damage is much less, but I am at major risk of crit. A 4th Harden is met with another Rock Tomb, taking me down to 17 HP. Dustox eats an Oran Berry and gets back up to 27 HP. I misclicked and hit Harden again, and this time Rock Tomb takes me down to 21 HP, so it was definitely time to start attacking. I hit it with a Confusion and it hits me with a Rock Tomb down to 15 HP. This is getting dicey. Another Confusion and the Nosepass gets confused and hits itself in Confusion. Another Confusion and the Nosepass hits me with a Rock Tomb, bringing me down to just 9 HP. I hit it with another Confusion, taking it to red HP, and finally get a Paralysis to activate. One more Confusion and it's down, earning us our first badge. This was hard. After a couple small missions, we hit the Dewford town and challenge Brawly. Brawly uses fighting types, so this should be easy. We lead off with Dustox and Brawly sends out Machop. We hit it with a Confusion, getting a crit before it retaliates with a quad resisted Karate Chop. Brawly uses a Super Potion, taking Machop back up to full health, but 2 more Confusions and Machop is down. Next, Brawly sends out Makihita. One Confusion takes it down to under half health before it hits me with the Sand attack. One more Confusion and Makihita goes down, netting us our second badge. I'm fully expecting this to be the last easy badge of the run. We then hitch another ride with Mr. Briny to deliver a package to Slateport. Here we meet the Name Raider and give our Pokemon some nicknames. I wanted to do this sooner, but forgot, and was expecting to have to evolve multiple Wurmples for the alternative evolution. We named Beautifly Jekyll, and Dustox is now Hyde. In Slateport Market, we come up on this guy who wants to sell us some good stuff in secrecy. Honestly, I don't know if this is a reference to what I'm thinking, but this is a family-friendly program. Next, we go to Mauville's second floor, and man, a lot of these people are super relatable, like this guy. I feel you, my guy. And this as well. This is probably the most relatable thing I've ever read in a Pokemon game. I know, dude. Feel the same way every day. And then there's this lady. Somebody please come get your grandma. She's telling me to give people O's and make them feel happy. I'm gonna leave now. Alright, my first attempt at Watson, and I am scared. I lead off with Hyde and he begins to Volt Switch me ad nauseum. I accidentally declined to teach Hyde Mudsport at level 17, which would have made this battle a hell of a lot easier. Thank God Hyde is not part flying, or else I would have had to level up to level 40 to even attempt this, but his steel types do resist or are outright immune to all my attacks. They also love to spam Thunder Wave and Supersonic. I ultimately lose this round, but I think I can do it with just a little bit of luck. After countless attempts, I get a super lucky run. I lead off with Hyde and he leads off with Magnemite. I hit him with Psybeam and he hits me back with Thunder Wave. This time a Cherry Berry activates, curing my paralysis. I went for Psybeam again and he hits me with another Thunder Wave. This is already looking really bad for me. Magnemite now at speeds and hits me with a Volt Switch. Out comes Voltorb, who takes a huge chunk of damage from Psybeam before Volt Switching back into Magnemite, who takes another Psybeam and faints. Okay, Voltorb switches back in and immediately switches out with the Volt Switch, and out comes Magneton. This thing is scary. It tanks my Psybeam but gets confused in the process. Not wanting me to be left out, it confuses me back with Supersonic and I hit myself with Confusion. Next turn Magneton hits itself with Confusion, I get off a Moonlight, bringing me back to almost full health. I then send in Jekyll to shake off the Confusion, but one Volt Switch and the little boy's down. Or girl, I guess, right? It's all on Hyde now. I go for Psybeam and Voltorb goes for Charge. Thankfully, even with the special defense buff, it still goes down. Magneton comes in and goes for another Volt Switch, and I hit it with Psybeam, bringing it below half health. It hits me back with Supersonic, confusing me, and I hit myself in Confusion. I get hit with another Volt Switch down to 22 HP and manage to break through for a Moonlight. I then get hit with Magnet Bomb, but because it's physical, it does minimal damage, and snap out of Confusion and hit it with Psybeam. This looks winnable, and then Watson uses a Super Potion, of course. I was sure it was over. Here's where my luck turns my favor. Another Psybeam and a dodge a Supersonic. I dodge another Supersonic and hit another Psybeam. This time Supersonic lands, and I preemptively went for a Moonlight. I get hit with a weak Volt Switch, snap out of Confusion, and yet another Psybeam. Finally, I go for one last Psybeam after avoiding another Supersonic and win. This was extremely stressful. Time to rescue Professor Cosmo from Team Magma. This kid just witnessed the kidnapping, and this is his reaction literally seconds later. Alright, anyways, we then run into Archie after defeating the Magma admins, and he tells me to say no to drugs, I think. I've never heard this statement before, but anyways, time for the first Maxi battle. I'm scared because he has a camera up and a Golbat in the back, so I'm expecting this to be rough. I lead off with Jekyll and he sends out Mightyena, one Silver Wind, and Mightyena is down. Out comes Camerupt. I hit it with an Air Cutter and he uses Amnesia. Thanks to my Metronome held item, next Air Cutter actually does end up taking it out. Next up is Golbat. I hit it with Air Cutter to a quarter health and it confuses me. I hit myself in confusion and it does some major damage with Air Cutter. Thankfully, next turn I snap out of confusion and hit it with Air Cutter, securing the win. It's time for the Flannery battle. I expected to have to do this one many times. I let off with Jekyll and she sends out Slugma. Slugma. One Air Cutter and Slugma is down. Next up is Torkoal. I am very worried about Overheat. I hit it with an Air Cutter down to red health and it retaliates with Overheat. I still don't know how I survived this one, albeit barely. A Hyper Potion brings Torkoal back up to full health, 2 more Air Cutters, and the big tortoise is down. I'm just glad it never had the drought ability. Lastly is Numel, or is it Numel? Anyways, it succumbs to the same fate as Slugma, earning us our 4th badge. I was starting to worry that I was getting overleveled because that Flannery battle was far too easy, so I jumped straight into the battle with Norman. I sent out Hyde and he sends out Slacking. I hit it with a Toxic so that Venoshock doubles in power, and it tries putting me to sleep with Yawn, so I swap out for Jekyll. I then swap back into Hyde to take advantage of Venoshock and get hit with another Yawn. So I switch back to Jekyll and go for Bug Buzz, seeing as Slacking was very damaged by the poison at this point and it should go down. Thankfully it does go down, but next up is Vigoroth. This thing might be the middle stage, but it carries Retaliate and can hit like a truck, so I swap for Hyde and use the Toxic strategy again, but Vigoroth uses Encore, forcing me to switch out back into Jekyll. Thankfully it goes for Retaliate this turn as opposed to the initial one, and Jekyll tanks the attack before taking it down with a Bug Buzz. Last up is the final Slacking. I hit it with a Bug Buzz before being confused with Swagger, so I opt to switch out for Hyde. I go for the kill with Venoshock, but get outsped and hit with a Swagger, and subsequently hit myself in confusion. I go for Venoshock again, but unfortunately it's just not enough that Slacking hangs on. A Hyper Potion brings it back up to full health, and I snap out of confusion and poison it. I get Swaggered again, and I'm now at +4 attack, hitting myself in confusion. I decided to swap back out for Jekyll to try and take it out with Bug Buzz. Bug Buzz just falls short of taking it out and hits me with Swagger, but thankfully Toxic Damage ends up taking it out, winning us our 5th badge. I really expect this to be a lot harder with the 2 Slackings, but thankfully it was much easier than I expected. After some Weather Institute shenanigans, it's time for Winona. I was most scared of this battle. She sends out Swallow and I sent out Jekyll. I opted not to teach Jekyll Quiver Dance at level 40 because I felt like the game would be too easy. I go for Air Cutter before getting hit with an Aerial Ace for major damage. After a Super Potion, thanks to the Metronome, the next Air Cutter takes the Swallow out. Up next is Pelipper. Pelipper is surprisingly specially bulky and survives the Air Cutter and hits me with another Aerial Ace. However, Pelipper has low attack and I easily tank it. Next Air Cutter and Pelipper is down. Here comes my biggest nightmare. It quad resists half my moves, resists others, and is totally immune to the rest. Air Cutter has now built up in power thanks to the Metronome, but the Iron Bird survives and takes me out with an Aerial Ace. It's all up to Hyde again. I hit it with a resisted Psybeam and it retaliates with a weak Air Cutter, which Hyde easily tanks. I hit another Psybeam, confusing it. But Skarmory breaks through and hits a critical Aerial Ace. Oh man. I go for Moonlight to recover some HP, and thankfully Skarmory hits itself in confusion, taking itself out. Next up is Altaria, a proper defensive tank. I poison it to boost Venoshock, and it wastes a turn going for Cotton Guard. A 130 base power Venoshock takes it down to a quarter health, and it hits a weak Earthquake. One more Venoshock and the blue puffball is down, winning us our 6th badge. That Skarmory is the bane of my existence. This took 20 plus tries. I know what you're thinking. Where the heck is the Liza and Tate battle? Liza and Tate? Whatever. And honestly, I wish I knew. I definitely recorded it, but I could not find the file. In summary, Jekyll took out Solrock with one Bug Buzz, and I poisoned Lunatone with Toxic. Next turn, I finished off the Lunatone with Bug Buzz, winning us the 7th badge. I then catch up with Maxie and Archie, as Maxie attempts to revive Groudon, and honestly, this guy is really freaking weird. Just look at him. Holy cow. This battle took me 30 plus tries. His Mightyena loves to slow us down with Scary Face and Taunt. His Crobat and Weezing both know Haze, which never misses and makes setting up impossible. His Weezing loves to go Boom. His Crobat can take us out with 110 base power acrobatics and is much faster than us. And his Mega Camerupt has Rock Slide and Yawn. This was rough. I ultimately had to teach Jekyll Quiver Dance, as this was otherwise impossible without over leveling. I had intended on going into this battle with Hyde and using Flash 6 times to lower the accuracy of Scary Face and Taunt so I could send Jekyll in and set up with Quiver Dance, but this battle honestly ended up going in a completely different direction. After using Flash 6 times, I switched to Jekyll to start upsetting Quiver Dances. I sent in Jekyll and went for Quiver Dance, and he hit me with a Scary Face. That was -2 in speed. One Quiver Dance puts us at -1 speed, another Scary Face puts us at -3, but a Quiver Dance puts us at -2. He then taunts me, so I have no choice but to go for an Air Cutter, taking him out. Next up is Weezing, and I am still taunted, so I have no choice but to go for another Air Cutter, taking it out. Here comes the biggest threat, Crobat. He outspeeds me and goes for Mean Look rather than attacking by some miracle, and I go for Air Cutter, getting a crit and taking it out. Last but not least is Mega Camerupt, but at this point, thanks to Metronome and Quiver Dance, one final Air Cutter does the trick, winning us the match. One miss, and this absolutely would have been a loss. Maxie is ultimately successful in reviving Groudon, who heads straight to Stopolis to set the world on fire. Guys, I'm literally a 10-year-old kid. Remind me why I'm the one who has to do this again? Yeah, a magma suit. Totally, yeah, whatever. Seems really safe. Okay, I guess here goes. We're faced with a lasagna dinosaur, and I opt to catch it and box it rather than even try and take it out. I don't even want to waste my time with this after the last Maxi battle, honestly. After literally saving the entire world, I head for my 8th badge. Wait, what is this guy wearing? Anyways, I start off with Jekyll and immediately begin stacking up Quiver Dances. I gave her the Miracle Seed to hold as well. Love Disc goes for a Sweet Kiss, confusing me. I hit myself in confusion and get hit with a Water Pulse. Next turn, I hit myself in confusion again and get hit with another Water Pulse. This is already looking pretty bad. I finally snap out of confusion and go for another Quiver Dance before getting hit with Water Pulse and, yeah, getting confused again. Time to start attacking. A Giga Drain takes the Love Dusk out and puts me at just above half health. Still confused, I break through and take the tanky Melodic out in one Giga Drain. Thank God for that 100 base special attack stat. Ceolio never stood a chance. Whiscash is literally gone faster than it came in. And Seeking following its friends to the Netherworld. That's the 8th badge. It's time to head to the Pokemon League. But first, we need to send Wally home packing. This was a very easy battle. I led off with Jekyll and leads off with Altaria. I started setting up with some Quiver Dances and got hit with the Dragon Pulse. Another Quiver Dance and another Dragon Pulse. One final Quiver Dance and Aerial Ace meant it was time to start attacking. Air Cutter shreds the Puffball to pieces. Bug Buzz sets off Magneton Sturdy, but thankfully he went for Flash Cannon as opposed to Discharge, as I don't think I would have survived. One more Bug Buzz and Magneton is dropped. Up next is Delcatty, and this was a great chance to get some HP back, so I went for Giga Drain. The Dancing Onion stood no chance with Air Cutter. Lastly is Mega Gallade, and it could probably have Mega Evolved twice in a row, and it would still have gotten swept with Air Cutter. Alright, it's time for the final bosses. But first we need to deposit the slaves. I still can't believe that they just give you a Mega Latios/Latias at such an early part in this game. The first Elite Four member is Sydney. Sydney has the terrible luck of preferring Dark-type Pokemon, and 2 of his Pokemon are Grass-Dark types. So as you can imagine, this was an effortless sweep with Jekyll and Bug-Buzz. I did feel bad about sweeping him so badly at first, but I feel like being given this bone early on is penance for the nightmare to come. That is Steven. I don't really have anything to add here, just watch me mop the floor with his Dark types. The second Elite Four member is Phoebe. Phoebe likes Ghost-type Pokemon, and her Pokemon all have really annoying status moves ranging from the Very Broken Curse to Grudge, which fully eliminates all PP of the move that looked the Pokemon out, plus Toxic. I needed to set up a very crucial strategy, so I sent out Hide first, because Phoebe's Dusclops loves to immediately go for Curse, which removes a quarter of her HP every turn, but she won't use Curse more than once if her HP is halved. So I let off with Hide and used Toxic so that Venoshock would double in power, but of course Dusclops immediately goes for Curse. I started stalling the Toxic and Curse by using Moonlight. Another round of Toxic and the Dusclops is within range, so I went for Venoshock to bring Dusclops down to red HP before being confused with Confuse Ray. But luckily, the Toxic took Dusclops out before Phoebe could use a full restore. I decided to sack Hide at this point and went for Toxic before being taken out with a combination of Future Sight and Curse. It's now time for Jekyll to shine. I send Jekyll in and boost up with Quiver Dance while getting hit with a useless Grudge. Another Quiver Dance, and this time I get hit with a Shadow Ball for minimal damage. Dusknoir in the back is extremely bulky and carries 3 super effective physical elemental punches, so I boost again, getting hit by Toxic. Now I have no choice but to start attacking. Bayonet goes down thanks to just one Air Cutter. Sableye follows suit with another Air Cutter, and the Toxic damage is starting to rack up at this point. In comes the big bad Dusknoir, but I take it out with one Air Cutter and I'm down to 40 HP due to Toxic damage. I have one more attack before I get taken out by Toxic damage. Air Cutter thankfully connects, and that is one deader ghost. Now we have the Ice Queen herself, Glacia. As the name implies, she has Ice-type Pokemon. Her Walrein has been the bane of my existence in past years, but this actually was a relatively easy sweep. I lead off with Jekyll and begin boosting, and she sets up a light screen. Now I need to boost up even more. Another Quiver Dance, and Lily sets up Hail for some chip damage. Another Quiver Dance, and I get hit with an Ice Shard for moderate damage. The Hail chip damage is also starting to rack up. I decide it's time to start attacking and hit a Giga Drain for some HP, but the light screen severely reduces my damage output. One more Ice Shard puts me in range for any physical attack, but Giga Drain takes the Glalie out, and thankfully the light screen has now faded. Frostlass comes in next, but is taken out with one shot by Giga Drain. She sends out her next Frostlass, who falls to the same fate as the previous one with Giga Drain. And now comes the bane of my existence, the one I was most afraid of, Walrein, but thankfully it falls to one final Giga Drain. The final Glalie pointlessly uses Protect for some reason. I'm not even sure what her plan was, but next Bug Buzz and Glalie's flattened. The fourth and final Elite Four member is Drake. His team is proper scary. He has literal dragons and I have butterflies and moths. What could go wrong, right? Drake sends out the blue puffball and I lead off with Hide. I went for Flash, and this is where I immediately realized I miscalculated when I got hit with a no-miss Aerial Ace. I swear, this move has been the most difficult move to contend with the entire run. Realizing my mistake, I started going for some damage with a Venoshock, which is followed by a pointless Cotton Guard for the Puffball, and so I switched back to the original plan so that Jekyll can at least avoid the other moves, Dragon Pulse and Moonblast, when setting up. Not sure what I was even doing here. I think I was flustered. I went for Moonlight to stall for no reason before deciding to go back to Flash, I think. Yeah. I know, guys, I don't even know what I was thinking. I think I just wanted to stall so that when Hide finally went down, I could have a clean switch into Jekyll. I'm not feeling hopeful at this point. Yeah, I'm honestly just denying the inevitable here. This was completely pointless. Okay, Hyde is finally down, and I send in Jekyll and I decided to try and set up in the face of Aerial Ace. The AI seems much smarter in this game than other games I've played. Another boost and Aerial Ace brings me down to 45 HP. I had no choice but to start attacking at this point. One Air Cutter and Altaria is down. Next up is Flygon, who falls to the same fate. At this point, I decided I definitely needed some HP and went for Giga Drain, still short of the KO, but got some much needed HP, while an Ice Beam puts me in a terrible space. I'm actually glad I went for Giga Drain that turn, because I probably would have fainted. I wasn't sure if he would use a full restore or attack, so I opted to go for an Air Cutter rather than go for another boost. I went for Air Cutter so I could start boosting its power with Metronome. Flygon also falls down, and now we have the big bad Salamence. I'm terrified. Thankfully, it also drops. It's time for Champion Steven. This battle took me over 50 tries, with most attempts ending within 2 to 3 minutes and never ever getting past the demonic Iron Bird. After countless failed attempts, I decided it was time to run the ultimate cheesy tactic, Attract. Remember way early on when I mentioned how lucky I was that Beautifly was female, even though at that time I hadn't realized I was. Had Beautifly been male, this would have taken me to level 100, and even then, I'm not so sure that would have been possible. I had to remove Air Cutter for Attract, which left me with 2 quad-resisted attacking moves against Skarmory, so I began boosting. I went for Quiver Dance, and Skarmory thankfully was immobilized. I went for Quiver Dance again, but this time Skarmory breaks through and somehow misses a Toxic. Another boost, and Skarmory gets through, this time unfortunately hitting me with a critical hit Aerial Ace. I had no choice but to boost again because I was in for a serious fight. Skarmory gets through again though and unbelievably misses a Toxic. Fearing another crit, I went for Giga Drain, and you can see the abysmal damage after 4 Quiver Dances. Skarmory is thankfully mostly immobilized again. I hit another Giga Drain, this time getting a crit of my own. Anticipating a full restore, I went for another Quiver Dance. I decided to go for Bug Buzz for some stab boost, and actually ended up doing some pretty serious damage despite the quad resistance. One more Bug Buzz, and finally it's down. I could hardly believe it. But there's far worse to come. Aggron is next, and thankfully it's part rock, so it's hit normally by Giga Drain. However, at this point, I discovered it has Sturdy and pulls through. Any hit from this thing, and I am done for. Stone Miss misses, and I take it down with the Giga Drain. That was so close. Up next is Cradily, and this is a very easy sweep with Bug Buzz. Armado is up next, thankfully Giga Drain, and this guy is out of the park. In comes Claydol, and a Giga Drain makes short work of the Haunted Pottery. Last up is the 700 base power supercomputer, but one Bug Buzz puts us through for the win, making us the champions. Oh, this took forever. I included this May fight at the end here because I was not expecting it at all. I hadn't realized how low level her Pokemon were, and as was very normal for this run, I was often getting swept by Pokemon much lower level than me, especially if I wasn't expecting it. I had a lot of fun playing with these two Pokemon. As I mentioned initially, Beautifly is my favorite Pokemon, so this was extra fun. I found it really interesting how for the first half of the game, I definitely relied on Dustox's defenses to get me through, as Beautifly is far too brittle, but in the latter half of the game I had to rely on Beautifly's offensive power, and thankfully with Quiver Dance being so broken, and Beautifly having a healthy 100 base special attack stat, it was doable. I hope you enjoyed my first ever Pokemon challenge, and that you'll stick around for my future playthrough of other games.